What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to my channel. Now, you guys may have noticed that there was an ad running at the beginning of this video, and I just want to say thank you so much to everyone who has supported me to get to where we are right now. Watching those ads is going to help me a long way into making this channel even bigger, even better. So I just want to say again, thank you so much. You guys are the best. So for today's video, I have an in-depth comparison between the Venom Shock and the Ripcord Flight. Stay tuned after the intro. So the Venom Shock is arguably one of the greatest bowling balls ever made. And today we're going to compare it to the Ripcord Flight because they have the same base formula for the cover. So the Venom Shock has the gear core, which has an RG of 2.48, which is definitely on the lower side, and a differential of 0.034, which again is on that lower side. So what that means for the Venom Shock is that the core wants to get into a roll very early, and it's going to have a lower hook potential because that differential is in the low 30s. The cover on the Venom Shock is the Turmoil Medium Friction Solid cover, and it is one of the best covers we've ever had. Like I've always said about the Shock, it may not always be the ball that gets me the big scores, but it's always the ball that leads me into the ball that I need to be in. I catch myself throwing the Venom Shock a lot, especially when I start getting into trouble. The Venom Shock comes out of box at a 4000 laser scan sand finish, but for this video, I have it at a 3000 laser scan finish just so that it's the same surface as the Ripcord Flight so we can really see the differences in the balls. The Ripcord Flight, on the other hand, has the Oblivion weight block that has an RG of 2.53, which is on the high side, and a differential of 0.047, which is on that higher end of medium spectrum. So what that means for the Flight is that the core wants to be very long, wants to create a considerable amount of shape because that RG is so high. And then the hook potential, like I said, is in that medium high category. Now the cover on the Ripcord Flight is the Turmoil Max Solid cover, which is the same base formula as the Venom Shock, but a stronger version. To my understanding and my knowledge is that the cover on the Ripcord Flight is an upgraded or a stronger version of the cover that's on the Venom Shock, which is why we're comparing them. Now, this is what I mean when I say that the cover of the bowling ball is the most important thing in determining ball motion. The core in the Ripcord Flight has a significantly higher RG, so it should be the one that's longer and more angular. But because the cover on the Flight is significantly stronger than the cover on the Venom Shock, it makes it like a lot smoother. Like, it makes the Flight significantly smoother than the Venom Shock because of that cover. If you guys like this video, make sure to give me a like, a subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you can stay up to date every time I drop a new video. 70% of my total viewers are coming from non-subscribers, so I would super appreciate if you hit that subscribe button. And if you like this jersey or any of the jerseys in any of my videos, you can head on over to logoinfusion.com, use my promo code LUIS, L-U-I-S, and it'll get you 20% off your entire order. You must be logged in order to get the discount. And we're running a sale right now where you buy any 4 jerseys, get the 5th one for free, use my promo code, get you 20% on top of that. Comment down below and let me know if you have the Venom Shock or the Ripcord Flight in your bag and what you think about them. I'm going to take you guys out on the lanes now so you can see these two balls in action. Thank you guys for joining me for this in-depth comparison between the Venom Shock and the Ripcord Flight. As always, I'm going to show you every single shot that I threw in this session. In my opinion, it is the only way to give you a true comparison between two bowling balls, is to show you the good shots as well as the bad. It is way too easy to make every single bowling ball look amazing if all I'm showing is strikes. For me personally, this is a very interesting comparison because the Venom Shock has always been one of my favorite bowling balls of all time. So how is the Ripcord Flight going to compare, being that it has a very similar cover with a very different core? Like I've said in the past, the Ripcord Flight doesn't see a whole lot of lane time for me, and to be honest, I don't understand why that is, because every time I throw it, the ball rolls pretty good, as you can see in these shots. And then the Venom Shock, I mean, has always been one of my absolute go-to balls. The one big thing that I noticed when comparing the Shock and the Flight was just how much more smooth the Flight was compared to the Shock. Now, the Flight has a higher hook potential and hooked a little bit more. I wouldn't say that the differences were huge as far as hook potential, but as I chased both balls further left, It made it easier to get to the pocket with the shock because it came around the corner that much harder than the Ripcord Flight. For me personally, and I don't know about everyone else, I can only speak to myself, when a ball is as smooth as the Flight, it's hard for me to get left and really shape the ball. Now, I'm not saying that the Flight is a bad ball by any means. For me personally, it is a very situational ball. It is a ball that I really like throwing when I can be very straight and be more up the lane with it. The more I have to curve the Flight, the less likely I am to even want to throw it. So I really like the Flight when I can get on a shorter pattern and I can play near the gutter, or if I'm bowling on something a little longer where I need to be a little bit straighter. Pretty much in every other situation, I would rather be throwing a Venom shock. And even in those scenarios, I would still lean more towards the shock. And again, I'm not saying that the Flight is a bad ball. My eyes just don't love the motion that the Flight produces for me. Now, in this bowling center specifically, on this house shot, these kind of bowling balls, meaning the Flight and the shock, are really good because they won't overhook in the middle part of the lane. The last video I shot in this center was the Jackal Ghost and the Jackal Flash, and the Ghost, if I even missed a little bit inside, the ball had no chance. I really liked in this center how smooth the Ripcord Flight came off the back part of the lane as we started. And then as we got later on in this video session, I really liked the shock, how hard it came off the spot and still went through the pins. I've always said that versatility is what keeps a bowling ball in my bag for the long haul. The Venom shock has been in my bag for years because it is one of the most versatile balls I've ever thrown. It's a ball that I've always matched up with on multiple different patterns, not just on a house shot. The Ripcord Flight, like I've mentioned before, doesn't see a whole lot of lane time for me because it's not as versatile as a bowling ball for me as the Venom shock. Now, I take the Ripcord Flight with me to every single tournament where there's a ton of friction to the right, or if I'm bowling on a short pattern. I think the Ripcord Flight is a very, very good option for me on those shorter oil patterns or where there's a lot of friction to the right. I also really like the Ripcord Flight when there's a ton of friction to the right, but there's also a lot of volume in the middle part of the lane where you kind of have to glide it through the fronts into the friction. That's another situation where I really like the Flight. Because the Flight has a stronger cover than what's on the Venom shock, it also handles the higher volumes of oil significantly better than the Venom shock. Now, your rev rate and how you come out of the ball is going to dictate a lot of that, but just as a generalization, the Flight should be able to handle more oil for you than the Venom shock. So if you're someone who already has a Venom shock, but wish that you can throw it on the higher volume patterns, or if you want something that's a little smoother than the Venom shock, but will give you a similar motion to the Venom shock, I would highly recommend this Ripcord Flight with a very similar layout that you have on the shock. So my Venom shock and my Ripcord Flight have very similar layouts for that reason. Now, I do believe that the shock and the Flight are different enough ball motion wise that you can warrant having both of them in the bag. Now, if you're someone who's watching this video who's looking to purchase their first Motiv ball ever, or if you're trying to recommend a bowling ball to someone as their first Motiv ball, I would highly recommend the Venom shock. If I could only recommend one bowling ball to make someone fall in love with the brand, it's going to be the Venom shock. Now, a comparison between the shock and the Flight almost seems unfair just because of how popular or how much I personally love the Venom shock. I am almost always going to lean towards the shock when compared to any other bowling ball. Because the cover on the Ripcord Flight is so much stronger than the cover on the Venom shock, it makes for a very good 1-2 punch, especially in league. As an example, you can start with the Ripcord Flight, playing a little bit straighter, a little bit more up the lane, and then once you get into that half pocket, week 10, or if you're lefty, week 7 area, you can chase the ball into the pattern with the Venom shock. Well, there you have it, folks. There's my in-depth comparison between the Venom shock and the Ripcord Flight. Let me know down below in the comments if you like this video and if you want to see more 2-ball comparisons like this in the future. And again, I just want to say a super thank you for helping get my channel monetized. Click right here to watch one of my other videos. Click right here to subscribe. Till next time, guys.